colorblind, yeah. All I know is we're here, that they took us somewhere. So what they say we're falling out of line. They don't know the two of us are colorblind. All I know is we're here, that they took us somewhere. So what they say we're falling out of line. They don't know the two of us are colorblind, yeah. Colorblind for all my life, and they kept painting rainbows. I'm colorblind, it's black and white. It seems it will remain. And you've been colorblind for all your life. It's scared to even say so. We're colorblind, it's black and white. It seems it will remain so. Colorblind, yeah. All I know is we're here, that they took us somewhere. So what they say we're falling out of line. They don't know the two of us are colorblind. All I know is we're here, that they took us somewhere. So what they say we're falling out of line. They don't know the two of us are colorblind, yeah. Sink down and emotions feel like I never did before. Live shows and spoken reels of the movie I ignored. Blue skies on a broken sea and I'm stuck up on the shore. I never thought you could see me, but you did. All I know is we're here, that they took us somewhere. So what they say we're falling out of line. They don't know the two of us are colorblind, yeah. All I know is we're here, that they took us somewhere. So what they say we're falling out of line. They don't know the two of us are colorblind. All I know is we're here, that they took us somewhere. So what they say we're falling out of line. They don't know the two of us are colorblind, yeah. colorblind for all my life, and they kept painting rainbows. I'm colorblind, it's black and white. It seems it will remain. And you've been colorblind for all your life. It's scared to even say so. We're colorblind, it's black and white. It seems it will remain so. Colorblind, yeah. All I know is we're here. They took us somewhere. So what they say we're falling out of line. They don't know the two of us are colorblind. All I know is we're here. They took us somewhere. So what they say we're falling out of line. They don't know the two of us are colorblind.
Everyone.
Oh my god.
How is everyone doing?
Hello.
Melly, thank you so much for the raid. Go follow Melly, will ya? Alright, who we got in here? We've got Trinsic, we got Muerto, Ice, Phil. What's up, Phil? Istra, Wolf.
I brought the crew.
Probably some other people. There's a lot happening in
There's
chat right now.
something going on also on the screen.
Oh my god, there's a line.
Oh wait, hold on.
There's more
I
than
clicked-
face.
Yeah, good
I
point
clicked
there.
the wrong one. My bad. That was my fault.
Morgan has been bisected.
My bad. That was on me.
Wow. That's awkward. One,
Trevor's very loud. Alright, Trev,
one
turn
half
your game
Maxio,
down.
other half Morgan.
I lowered it. Oh, why the
Mapsio, and I am also Morgan.
That's like very conceptually deep, which is convenient because our guest tonight is the Waltiverse, who contains Waltitudes. And he's the only streamer I know whose name is based on multiverse theory, so you know his stream is all about some nerd shit. And we're gonna talk about that nerd shit tonight.
Wow.
We've
Okay.
actually planned that segue. Morgan was
Way
intentionally
to call him out immediately.
So you can find a link, if you do the ! current guest, you can find a link to Walt's channel where you can check out his content. Highly wonderful content, I highly recommend it. Walt, we know you've been excited to be on the podcast for a couple weeks now.
He's been
You've
nervous.
been one of our
He's
I
like,
love your
promoters.
promotion. Your promotion
Yeah.
game was so strong. I really appreciate
Thanks,
that.
guys. What
all
can I
you
say?
future guests out there, you gotta step your shit up now.
Yeah,
That's from working in theater. That's you know what I mean. That's just what you learn.
I'm glad you said that because that is like just getting right into it. You do have a theater background, of course, and
I
I'm
do,
always
I
interested to see. We've had guests on this show before that had marketing backgrounds. We've had guests that had backgrounds in other form of content creation and YouTube, but and like makeup and all sorts of things. But you are one of our first guests, I feel like, who has a really in-depth theater background, and your knowledge of theater is not just experiential, but you also have some formalistic knowledge as well. And I was just wondering, how has your experience been? Have you found a lot of transitionable skills from theater into Twitch streaming in your journey so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I really could just leave it at that. I could just say yeah. No,
That's a very shallow
Whatever.
answer.
All right, we have 2 more hours left.
great. Do you guys have any other questions?
We're done.
All right, that was it. Thanks for showing up, guys.
I've been waiting to get back to Fall Guys. I'm
Who are we gonna raid? Who are we raiding?
No. Actually, I think there are a lot of parallels actually because it's a live form. I think that theater, a lot of I guess you would call it the meta, in theater has been essentially trying to answer the question of why theater is necessary anymore. And I think you have your people who are purists about it, right? Who think that it's an unappreciated art, and if only more people knew about it, it could or would be just as big as any other modern art form. But I think that one of the answers to that question, in terms of why you continue to do theater, or why you should, is that it's a live form, right? That is essentially one of the only art forms in which the artist and the receivers of the art are in direct communication with each other, right? And of course, that's just really the actors, I suppose, but sort of through the actors, everyone else, right? The director, the set designers, the writers. And it's about essentially a transmission of experience from one person to another, right? And I think there's different ways to do that. You have your fourth wall, you have your breaking the fourth wall. But I don't think a lot of art forms have really done it as much as the way that theater has done it. And I think especially as we've gotten into the 20th century, late 20th century, and going in now into the 21st century, that I think there's been a lot of discussion about what film does, what essentially a screen does to an individual, right? That it essentially puts an individual in a passive state, that you're not in relationship with, I guess, with the storyteller in quite the same way. And so while it does create a critical distance, it also creates somewhat of an emotional distance as well. And you don't get that sense of communion or community, right? That theater has its roots in religion, right? It has its roots in Greek choral religious tradition. And so I think my point that I'm getting to is that I think what's amazing, I think, about Twitch that I don't really think a lot of people recognize, or certainly maybe people outside of Twitch don't recognize, is that it essentially is an evolution of the live form. And that, or in some ways, it's a combination of late 20th century technology fusing with I mean, one of the oldest art forms known to man, right? That essentially you are in a screen and you are separate from other individuals, and in some way it's not very democratic, right? Like, that streamer has a microphone and a camera, and in that way has maybe more communicative power. However, it's essentially like minute to minute interaction, right? You can't, in theater, you can't communicate with the actors throughout the performance, right? You can't talk to them, ask them questions, ask them what they think about what they're doing, or what they think about the play that they're performing in, right? All of that stuff happens before and after. But in a live stream, there's essentially this relationship between the performer and the audience, where the audience kind of, even though individually they might not have as much communicative power, as a unit, right? They speak as a voice. They speak as like a collective body, right? And the streamer reacts to that in a way. Like, the streamer, there's a really interesting balance of power there. That the streamer is almost like I don't want to say afraid, but I think that the streamer is just as respectful, or should be just as respectful of their audience as the audience should be respectful of the streamer, because there's an interplay. Otherwise, it's just some fool sitting around playing games, or sitting around doing an art stream and nobody's there. Just the same as theater. That's what we call rehearsal.
Right. Yeah. So
It's like you're entering into a contract with each other.
I don't want to like sound naive here, but like, would you say that like streaming is kind of like more so improv as opposed to like the natural state of theater? I
think aspects of streaming. I think that I think it seems to me from observation. I'm sorry, I'm not even reading chat here. I'm sorry. You guys need to reel me back in. But what I will say is that there are aspects of, I would say the standard approach to streaming probably relies mostly on techniques that are used in improv, right? Where you have somebody that hasn't planned much, maybe has some stuff set in place. They show up, they take cues, right, from the audience. They give something back to the audience, and then so on and so forth until it's over, and then it's very temporal, right? As soon as it's over, if you don't save that VOD, it's gone. Yeah. But I do think that the platform itself, or at least the idea of live streaming itself, has so much potential in terms of what you can do in as far as creating an experience for the people who are watching. And in that sense, you could probably do something that is not very close to improv, and maybe more close to live theater, right? Where it is incredibly scripted, incredibly planned and choreographed, and rehearsed and timed, And it does create an experience that people can react to in real time, and maybe you can adjust it in real time. But that it's unlike improv. Again, because improv, you're communicating with your laughter, and that's it. It's kind of the same thing in theater, right? In comedy, you're communicating with your laughter. But in streaming, you're communicating with your whole self. I mean, through a keyboard, really. But you're bringing your whole self to that stream as an audience member and as a streamer, as a viewer. I don't even know what's the correct term for people who watch streams. A viewer?
Viewer.
Well, it depends how in depth you want to get. There's viewer in like a sense of like they're watching you, but there's lurker in the sense that they're watching you, but you don't know they're watching you, and that sounds kind of creepy. But like,
I'm gonna call it
chatter is separated in terms of like Twitch's like own sense of so you said quite a lot of things there, Walt, that should deserve to be unpacked there, because I think, well, for one thing, you've not only articulated one of what I think is the great strengths about streaming, but you've also articulated one of the things I think about theater, which a lot of people, depending upon their exposure, if they studied like did like a drama course in college, in like college literature or something like that, they might not realize about theater. Like, there are certain things, especially plays that are highly interactive, like, or involve, direct audience, like addressing, that really don't come across well reading it. Like, for instance, like I would go so far as to say it's a bad idea to read Hamlet. Like, right. Instead of right? Like, it's, but that's a way a lot of people actually digest them now. Right?
Yeah,
like, because
yeah.
A lot your average, second year college drama class, when I took like third year English for Shakespearean tragedies, like, we didn't act out the plays, we read them. And to be honest, that was bad. That was wrong. Like you won't appreciate. There are some of them you will still appreciate, but they won't be A Midsummer Night's Dream. They won't be Hamlet. Certainly is probably the worst.
So after you acted them out, did you watch the movie to see how they were supposed to actually be?
Well, I would actually argue with you to say that the movie itself is also an interpretation, and that
yes,
I think what you do is you watch the movies to see what they kind of came up with. Or what their approach was. And definitely there are plenty of times where you watch it, you're like, oh, fuck, that's what I should have done. Why didn't I think of that?
Have you seen Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet?
I have seen it. Yeah.
Do you have opinions on that film? I know this is like kind of unrelated. I'm just kind of curious.
Look, nothing is unrelated, right?
Kenneth Branagh is, well, first of all, I respect him very much as a story. I mean, because he is. He directs and he adapts those. I mean, what he does is very, very hard to do, and I think he does pull it off. I will say that Kenneth Branagh is one of those guys. I mean, I'm sure we all have them, right? Like, whether it's a game or a song or a comedian or whatever. Like, something that you really enjoyed when you were young because it just hit the right notes for you as you were younger, and then as you got older, it just doesn't taste the same, And that's kind of Kenneth Branagh for me, that I appreciate what he's doing, but like I find him a bit distracting when I watch the Shakespeare.
That's actually him for me as well. Like, I think I have more respect for what he does than I enjoy his filmmaking or his acting.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's,
And I also feel like his direction style, like, Kenneth Branagh is for me what Baz Luhrmann is for a lot of people, where like they appreciate his technique, but they don't. Now, I happen to really like Baz Luhrmann, but I know a lot of people don't.
Just about to bring up Baz Luhrmann too, because I wanted to know Walt's take on. I was in theater in high school, and then I took theater classes in college as well, and I was in all of my plays and my at least the ones that I could be in, but. Everybody that I've talked to in theater, they've said that Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet is like the best adapted one, even though they hate to say it. Like, what's your opinion on that?
Well, it depends, because I think that's my answer to everything. It depends. It depends. No, I think that what happens is that people have different ideas of what interpreting something correctly means, right? Like, I think you have your people who are all about the language, and they're all about treating the language in a very specific way. And if nothing else works about the production except that everyone did the language in that specific way, they'll consider it a success, right? I think there are other people, I think I'm more along this line, that I think that if you capture the essence of what that thing is, then that's a solid interpretation. And I think that for me that conceptualization works. You know, like I think like setting it in Miami, setting it with like setting with like the youth of Miami, and it's very 90s, right? Like the movie is very, very 90s, but like in a way that the 90s was kind of about rebellion, and it was about anti-establishment, right? That you have these like warring young factions, and you have these like idiot kids who are like running around terrorizing everybody and fighting with each other. And I think that the movie really captures that, because that's very present in the Shakespeare. And so I think the movie does that really well. And I also think in terms of the conceptualization, it works really well too. Like I think there's like, aren't there guns in that are named?
Guns in it, yes.
Yeah,
but there are guns in it that are named, aren't they? Or am I thinking of something different?
It's been a
hot minute since I've watched it, but I'm pretty sure you're right.
But you know what's a beautiful? I mean, for instance, like a really beautiful moment for me that it's kind of anti-Shakespeare, but it's totally Shakespeare. Is the moment of the kids singing "When Doves Cry" in the church. They're rehearsing. The choir is rehearsing. Yeah, and that kid is doing a fucking fantastic rendition of Prince's "When Doves Cry," right? But there's something about it, even though "When Doves Cry" is not about necessarily what Romeo and Juliet is about. There's something about what that kid is doing, and there's actually something about that song, right? Because the song itself is about essentially like is about not reconciling, but like warring with the effect that your parents have on you, right? Like maybe I'm just like my father, maybe I'm just like my mother. And of course, like Romeo and Juliet is essentially all about the impact that the actions of parents have on the youth. Right? Like this is not the war that the youth started, but it is the war that the youth continues. So in a way, right? Again, that's what I mean. Like there's something about When Doves Cry that captures the essence of what Romeo and Juliet is. And in that way, for somebody like me, I'm like, no, that's fine. That gets my stamp, because we shouldn't be doing the same thing. We should not be doing Romeo and Juliet the way Shakespeare did it. It's dead. It's 400 years old. It's dead. It's over. It's gone. In my opinion,
Right,
So let's throw the kid up there. Let's sing some Prince.
So, obviously, one of the most important elements of theater for a variety of reasons, one of the things the audience will really notice is costume design. And you have your very own costume design on your channel. You have a consistent theme. It's usually a dress shirt, a tie, a jacket, and then some wild pants. Like you like
or no pants. No pants sometimes.
This actually ties into one of the questions that we had.
Pardon the pun. Walt. Pardon the pun.
Yeah, I didn't actually mean to do that pun, but
you see, theater is everywhere.
Andrew asked, "What is your favorite tie knot and like why? Like, was it because you learned it early and you got taught that?"
God, I wish I were cool. I wish I were cool enough to know different tie knots. I wouldn't even know what I just showed Rory how to do this knot, and I couldn't even tell you what it's called.
Is it like a Windsor or four?
I think it's
no, it's not a Windsor. A Windsor is a Windsor's a big.
He didn't tell me what it's called. Time was sort of the essence before the stream started.
That's true. We were.
He taught him in like 20 seconds.
I was like, "What's happening?"
This is the way my dad. This is the way my dad showed me how to tie a tie, and that's all I know. That's the only way I can call it. See, I'm just a fake.
Nobody actually uses
it's all fake. I don't know what this shit's called.
Also, since we have a moment of silence, Tiffany, thank you for the raid. If you're not following, make sure you go and follow.
Follow Tiff.
Oh, did Tiff do a raid? Oh,
yeah.
I totally,
she did.
I totally missed it. I'm sorry, Tiff. I would have.
Way to miss it.
I did not get the time memo today. I did not get the time memo.
She's finding a new co-op partner now as we speak.
Wait, so Walt, can you break down the like? How did you conceptualize Waltiverse as being specifically a suit-wearing individual?
Yeah.
How did it come across?
Well, honestly, I always thought, initially, because I had this idea, like back when I was watching Meth, Melly. Like way back when I was like watching, like early like Friday the 13th, like when I first started watching on Twitch, and I was like, oh man, that might be fun to just conceptualize like what a stream channel would be, And I always imagined that like it would be fun to have like a character, and of course I didn't realize at the time that like plenty of people do that, but I was like, oh, it'd be fun to have a character. And for some reason I was like, I really love Doctor Who. I love this character called Buckaroo Banzai. Essentially these kind of like suited space like brainiac travelers. Now I'm not a brainiac, but I think I wish I was one. Do you know what I mean? Like I would love to be like a Time Lord, or I would love to be as smart as a Time Lord. And so I always the thing is too, like throughout, there's something about suits. There's just something about suits aesthetically that really works for me. I love the idea of a comic book character or a sci-fi character that wears them, and I think there's something that is very iconic about them, which is why you see them over and over. They represent some sort of kind of like classical thing that you can continually like use as a backdrop against other things, right? So like you get the Time Lord who wears the suit, but he wears the suit with the Converse sneakers, and then he's in a giant floating like police box that's a massive spaceship on the inside, right? Or like something like the Men in Black, or who is basically like the FBI in space, or the Marx Brothers, who are like the craziest motherfuckers to ever exist, like in their respective world, but they all dress up. Like they all have these suits, Same thing with talk shows. Like talk show hosts are basically clowns that go out in front of everybody and yuck it up, but they always have to be dressed, And so there's something about that idea that
wait, what, are you calling us clowns?
No. Yes. No. You're a clown.
No.
We're clowns together. Listen, we're a troupe.
We are the Clowniverse.
We're the Clowniverse. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we all fit in a very small car.
Streamers become clowners.
We are not rebranding to that.
Oh, sorry. Andrew redeemed a Roy bed check, and I didn't see it. The bed is made.
Yes.
There's just a ton of shit on the bed.
Yeah, it's just one guitar.
But yeah, so that's kind of where that's why I have space like in my as like my image background, and like I have a weird like kind of Star Trek 80s Star Trek film-ish font thing.
Which you made, which I didn't know, because
I did make. But that was basically the idea. It was just like imagining like that the stream. I think initially it was something like a character, like it was like I don't know if you guys like are comic fans or not, but like when I was a kid and you would read comics, at the beginning of every comic there would be a blurb at the top that would tell you, just in case you'd never heard of the hero before, it would tell you essentially a little bio of how this person became the hero. And so I wanted something like that, or I imagined something like that. And the idea was like,
those. It'd be like, oh, this issue, this happened, and like this is why they hate this person.
Exactly. And so I had this thing where I was like, I was like a video gamer who somehow like I somehow through playing games got sucked through a wormhole, and then all of my possible realities got collapsed into one individual, and that individual became the Waltiverse. Like it was, I don't even know, like there's no like even rhyme or reason to it. Like I don't even know if that person has powers or anything like that, but like it just, that was the initial concept.
Are you going to develop more lore as it goes on? Like, is there going to be a reveal of a backstory, like a slow but sure, like comprehensive universe? Like, how far are you taking this?
Yeah.
That would be fun. I actually have been thinking about like creating like an animated series that like maybe would play at the beginning of each stream, like maybe an episode that plays like once a month.
That would be fun.
Yeah. And like,
love this.
I thought it would be fun. Yeah.
If you need music for this, hit me up.
I will. Yeah, I definitely I have to. I can't do it all.
My favorite thing about it too is like when you're done streaming, when you're like, okay, everybody, like when we go into like when we raid into the stream, be like, we are the Waltiverse, like it's this big Borg thing. Like
that's right. Yeah.
We have been assimilated.
As I recall, like there was a conversation. I was in the stream when you first did a raid, and you were like, okay, what are we gonna say? And it was like a big long back and forth of like, we don't want to make it too Borg because like we don't want to, we don't want Paramount coming after us and such. Well, I've got to ask, because this is something I've been meaning to ask you actually in person a number of times. I've forgotten to like DM it to you and ask you. Like, you have come into gaming in a really interesting way in terms of what you know about games, because I know you haven't. I would say, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, I would say you're kind of new to the game industry side of things, like developers and what they make and the principles of game development. Yeah. But you've attacked, in terms of the games you've streamed, things like Talos Principle and speedrunning Resident Evil and Bloodborne, for like a newcomer who is like still learning about the industry and still learning how games are made and such sort of things, you've dove really deep on some difficult things, and like I admire that, first of all, and because there's almost a competitive sort of vibe to it in a way of like, you know what, I'm new, but like fuck it, I can do this, you know what I mean? It's like it's like asking Steph Curry to play a pickup game kind of thing. You're just like, you know what, like, I gotta find someone to play with. Hey you, like, you know, like
yeah, right. I was like, I can get 1 point. I can get 1 point.
So where did you hear about these games, and like what made you want to? Did you know these were all hard before you started them? Like,
did you know what you were getting yourself into?
Yeah. I mean, some
did
of
you know
them
you would lose hours of your life just stressing over like dying to bosses over and over?
No, I didn't. Well, I had anticipated that's essentially how it would go with Bloodborne. I mean, just hearing about people like, oh my god, it's so difficult. I didn't quite know what I was getting into with it, but I will say that like I think I'm just really I just tend to be really curious about that kind of stuff, and I just don't want to waste my time, you know? And so for me, I guess it's like, well, what's the big stuff, you know? Like what's the hardest stuff, or what's the best stuff? What does everybody think is the best game? And Bloodborne was one of those games, and then it seems like critically it's considered one of the best, certainly on the PS4, and then even anecdotally, right? People that I know have said like, oh my god, it is
the best game on PS4.
people really love it. And so for me, I'm kind of like, well, then why am I going to waste my time with some game, you know, that isn't as like, what is the fuss all about, you know? And so I try to attack most things that way. I think I'm the same way with books. Like I generally don't, I'm not really much of a reader. I think because I just try to tackle really hard books, and then I just like, fuck this. I can't do this. But I think that's the idea behind it. You know, it's and some stuff I just fall into, like Friday the 13th, the game. I completely fell in. Like Mel brought it over one night, and she was like, yeah, I want you to play this game. And so we played it. Right, it was at my house, wasn't it, Mel?
Yeah. I was like, you got to play this.
Yeah.
Back then, I was trying to get everybody to play that game with me because I was like, I need to play with friends.
Well, it worked on me.
I kind of felt like I created a monster. Like I didn't expect you to like it as much as you did, and I was like, oh my god, you're getting into this on a level that I did not anticipate. I fell
so hard into Friday the 13th. It was the only game I played for like a year. So I mean, it was the reason I found Twitch, because it was all Melly, really, because Melly was like, listen, you like Friday the 13th, you have to watch this guy who is an incredible, you know, Friday the 13th streamer. And sure enough, and I did, and he is fantastic. Methodicalize is his name, and he is just one of those. He's like a savant with the game. I always wish that he would play tourneys, you know, but he doesn't do tourneys. He only plays public, you know. But
Walt introduced me to this like whole underground Friday the 13th, like hardcore players that don't stream.
Underground, like
they don't stream, but they're very like hardcore.
I've never heard of this. There's tournaments.
This is like the black market.
Like, I've watched a lot of Friday the 13th streams because me and Morgan like often would watch them like together in the nighttime, but like I had never heard of a tournament. Like this is my literal first time. What does that look like? Like bracket wise, like what is that?
Is it like Evo?
Bracket wise,
just like
that's
like how does it work? Because in Friday the 13th, for those that don't know, there's players who like are really good at playing the killer, but also players who are better at playing one or multiple of the counselors. So I'm just wondering how you like would do that in a legitimate way in a tournament bracket.
It's asymmetrical. So some tournaments are Jason tournaments, and other tournaments are player tournaments. And for each one, what you might do is, especially, you know, it kind of depends on, I guess you would call them the promoter or the organizer, right? And obviously there are levels of like professionalism to the organizers. Like you can tell somebody who's never put one of these things together before versus somebody who is like really on their shit about how they organize this tournament. But what they might do is if they have really good relationships with people, what they'll do is for a Jason tournament, they will ask the best teams or the teams that have scored the highest in past tournaments to essentially be like the teams that each Jason has to play against, and get and then there's like a scoring system for, because there's different ways to escape. There's a scoring system for how many times the counselors escape on you and the ways in which they do it, whether or not they call the cops, right? You get scored on this as a Jason. And then as the team, there are team tournaments where essentially you are rated on like how quickly you can kill Jason, whether you can survive the night, stuff like that. And then each team gets rated based on this factor. I actually did one of these tournaments and I got fucking wrecked.
Okay, that answers another question, which is about open entry or not. But I guess I do have an additional question about this, if you don't mind diving into this a little bit. So in terms of like, there are a lot of games, like for instance, like I play Tekken, right? In a Tekken tournament, the Tekken that's played is completely different than the Tekken that I would play or a friend of mine would play. You know what I mean? It's at so much of a higher level that functionally it's a different game entirely. Is Friday the same way? Like where like the way actual regular people play it is like they're playing a whole different meta in the tournament. Is that the same style? Okay.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating too, because in the public, I guess you call them public, right? So basically, like I guess public, which is basically everybody, like you and me, just signing on to play Friday the 13th. It's funny because you see a lot of complaints, the casuals, right? Like every time that the casuals, right? You see a lot of complaints about Jasons and about what what counselors can do. And what's interesting about it is that once you learn more about the techniques that are employed by both top tier counselors and Jasons, you realize that it's like you're just bad at the game. That's what you're mad about. Like that's really what you're mad about, is that you're mad that Jason can do this, but you don't realize that if you were good enough, he wouldn't be able to do that to you, unless he were like a top tier Jason, which he probably isn't if he's playing on these public matches. But it's tough because I think there's also a really interesting thing that happens with the community, because generally the people who are these top tier Jasons and top tier counselors are also really interested in the mechanics of the game and ways. It's basically like professional sports, right? That like, I mean, there's obviously that big to do about Tom Brady and the ball, but really all the quarterbacks did that, right? Every quarterback has like a sense of like, I like this kind of grip. I like to hold my socks up this kind of way because it gives me this kind of motion, right? I like the helmet to be screwed on. And I mean, they are so particular about the ways in which they set up their own gear that I think that players at any top tier level are that way, right? Even video gamers. And certainly these Jasons are like that, right? That it's like, they're like, if you actually can manipulate these buttons enough, right, you can break down the door in this many seconds, as opposed to the standard way, which is this many seconds. And so there's kind of a war going on between people who think that you're cheating or hacking, and some people just are genuinely doing that. But then there's also like an incredible amount of skill involved in the like how many buttons you have to press in how many kinds of ways in order to pull off like incredible feats as like a Jason. And so, anyway, I'm talking way too much about this. I'm sorry.
No. I asked because I wanted to hear about it. And so, is it one of those things? Because there are, I'll use fighting games as an example because I've never played Friday the 13th, right? But fighting games are balanced around the highest level of play, right? So we have the same sort of thing that you have, where like people complain that like this character's imbalanced, but it's actually not true, right? Yeah. It's just you need to be able to do a certain motion to. So you're saying, is Friday the same way, where it's balanced around the highest level of play?
No. And that's like a big kind of thing between these top tier players and the developers, because essentially it's a bit like Smash, right? That like the developers wanted to just make a stupid horror game, and they don't realize that they actually like inadvertently created a genius asymmetrical combat game, like a genius asymmetrical fighting game. Mm-hmm. And they don't ever want it to really be that. They still don't want it to be that, right? So they don't gear the game towards that. And in fact, a lot of the stuff that they fix in patches is geared towards like leveling the playing field, right? So that people who are bad at Jason can be better at Jason. Do you know what I mean? Like, because they're complaining, they're not having a good time. They're saying like, how am I getting beat up all the time by these counselors? Because sometimes these counselors will just go into pub matches and just wreck Jasons. You know, like
so, we've seen that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. And I mean, and it's tough because obviously it's a very small community, and of course, like the better you get at something, probably the more bored you get with it, right? You want to advance it, you want to try different things with it, you want to push it as far as it can go, and that's what these Friday the 13th guys do.
Is this how you
but
feel
the devs,
when I talk about like Bloodborne in your chat, when I see you die all the time? I was like, man, this is the easiest shit ever. I did this in like a minute.
Oh my god, Trip! I can't believe some of these videos you sent me. These like 1 minute matches.
How do you feel after you spent 6 hours trying to beat, Bloodstarved Beast, and then you watch a video where it's over in 30 seconds? Like, because when that happened to me, I was like, oh my god.
But the thing is, what you don't see in that 30-second video is the 30 hours it took to get it down to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's actually really interesting. Once you beat Bloodborne, you should actually look up the Games Done Quick from, I think it was from last summer's Games Done Quick. Who I think they beat the entire game with all the DLC in about 2 hours.
Yikes!
I would love to actually watch a speed run of Bloodborne with you.
They're wild.
And get your like in like live reactions. That would be really.
I probably need some time alone.
You can
I need some time alone after that.
Which also, just like since we were talking about like Friday the 13th, it's actually like something that I love talking about anyways, because that's the game that caused me to play with Melly in the first place, because
that's how I met you.
Yeah, that's exactly how I met you, because of Melly, because we were playing Friday and she's like, hey, we were just playing one day and she's like, hey, is it okay if my friend Walt plays? And I was like, sure. I don't mind. And I'll never forget, because I had just friended her because I thought she was cool and she accepted it. And then one day I was playing and I was like she just sent me a message. She's like, hey, can I hop in? And I was like, oh, Sugar Molly wants to play with me. Cool. And then that's how we had met, and how I had played one of the best Friday matches I've ever had in my life. And half of it was win. And it was hilarious. But I'll never forget playing with you, because we had played a few times, and then the next time we had played, Melly was like, Walt's gotten a lot better at this. He's been playing it like crazy.
The evolution between when you first played and then like how like hardcore you went with the game, it was actually pretty cool. Like seeing.
I'll never forget too, because I can remember the both of us were like, it was me, Melly, and you were Jason. And Melly and I were like getting the boat together, and I can even remember thinking, because like I was the one that was driving, we put the boat together. Both Melly and I were like, should we go the long way, because he's gonna hear the boat, he's gonna realize that it's going. And usually what people do when they play Jason is they morph to where the boat's gonna go, and most people take the short way. And I was like, should we take the long way? And we're like, nah, we're fine.
We're so toxic.
And we were like, oh no, we'll be fine. He's not gonna get us. And then you showed up, and we were like, ah!
I forgot about that.
It was so funny. I can remember just how much we were laughing and stuff, just because it was hilarious.
I love that game. I mean, it's buggy as hell, but there's like a simplicity about it that I think, like, once you breach like a certain level of it, and like especially when you see some of these people that can do it really well. I just fell hard. One of those games. I don't know. I couldn't even tell you what it really. I don't know why. I just like immediately clicked into it, and it was all I did for a year. It was the only game I played.
That's a lot of like what was with me as well, because like for a while I was like, I need to stop playing Friday because I'm not playing some of the other games that I'm playing.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I actually really appreciate you as a streamer, is like the tenacity and precision with which you approach any game that's thrown at you. Like, I think I don't know, for me as a viewer, I think it's something unique that you bring. Like when anytime a game is just thrown at you, the way that you just kind of dive into it.
That's actually kind of a good point, because like what I've really seen with Walt before is like any of the games that are thrown at him, especially on stream, he's like, oh, this game seems hard, I'm gonna be the best at it, and then you are.
No.
So my next question is, are you gonna approach Fall Guys with the same
same competitive nature?
Yeah,
you're gonna be the ninja of Fall Guys.
Be careful, we've already got the #1 Fall Guys player in the chat right now. Okay,
who is it? Who is it?
Phil. He doesn't mess around. Okay, yeah. So you got a lot of
great at Fall Guys.
Oh, that's right.
Phil's going pro any day now.
He is going. Yeah. I forgot that he's. I'm expecting it like one VIP ticket. That's all I want. That's what I told him. That's all I want.
We're gonna make a jersey.
Yeah.
So,
which, by the way, I was actually gonna say, one of the things that I'd love to do, hopefully maybe this October, if like Friday is like on super sale for people, whether like we would get it on PC or just if some of us already have it on PS4, which a bunch of us do, I would love to play with everybody, just like in a private match.
Oh, that
I would love
great.
to just play with everybody. I want to do that at least once.
Halloween-ish or around Halloween event.
That's actually what I really want to do. I think it'd be fun.
For this for
Oh my
while.
god, Halloween is one of my favorite holidays. So
Halloween is one of my top holidays as well.
Yes.
Actually cannot wait to watch your stream on Halloween because I know you'll probably do one.
Yeah.
I think so.
You'll probably do something awesome.
I can't get. The thing is, my wife does not like. She likes Halloween, but she doesn't like scary movies. So I usually have to do a lot of work to try to find something that she'll watch. And I managed to get her to watch The Shining. I still don't know how I did that. Yeah. But she loves it. And actually, she was saying maybe we'll watch The Shining this year too.
Wow.
Sometimes I think actually when it comes to, because I'm not a horror movie person either, but like when it comes to certain kinds where like this is a horror movie, but it's like more psychological horror instead of like just like jump scare, like perfect kind of jump scare kind of like scary movies. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the difference because I can be into those too, where it's just like a thriller instead of like jump scare movie. So I can kind of get that.
There's like a moment in that movie that I feel like too, like really great horror is like there obviously you do have your jump scares, and even movies that have jump scares have what I'm about to mention, which is this. There's like a piece in that movie that follows you around in your actual life, and like for me in The Shining, it only happens on a rewatch actually, because it's the moment when Shelley Duvall goes to Jack Nicholson and he's been working. He's like sitting there on that computer, and she brings him tea or something, and he berates her about interrupting his work, right? And he's like, "Why don't you just get the fuck out of here so I can continue my work?" And
that was actually a really good.
But she's like and like you think about it, it's like an abuse. It's an abusive relationship, right? And so she just, she's kind of like destroyed on the inside, walks out, but you realize upon rewatching it that he's typing, "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy." Like that's what he's doing. That's his work. Like he's just sitting there mindlessly typing and losing his mind at the typewriter, like hour by hour by hour by hour. And there's something about that I haven't quite like wrestled within myself, like psychologically, but I think about that moment a lot, like just sitting there losing your mind and nobody knows it, like she doesn't know it. She thinks he's working,
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to. Anyway.
Actually have another one too. I mean, I'm not gonna like talk big about it or anything like that because it's a fine movie and I like it. I know some people also don't like it, but if you're trying to find like an in-between for scary movies because like I said, I'm not a scary movie person. Have you guys ever watched Sleepy Hollow? Like the 90s Sleepy Hollow movie with
the Burton? The Tim Burton?
Yeah, with the Tim Burton one.
I never saw it actually.
I actually really enjoyed it. So not a lot of people like it, and that's okay, but that's one of the ones that I was okay watching also. So if you ever want to try that with her, I enjoyed it.
I found that a lot of my favorite 90s movies a lot of people don't like. Van Helsing is one of like me and Morgan.
I love Van Helsing.
It's a great movie.
Are you a Van Helsing?
Yes, that movie is amazing. Me and Morgan rewatched. Morgan, when did we watch that? We watched it sometime.
No, a few months ago.
There's an animated series now. Did you watch that as well?
We have. We should watch that.
Van Helsing animated series?
Yeah, I gotta check that out. I love Van Helsing. I also am a fan of like Bram Stoker's Dracula, the novel. Like I've read it many times. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, Walt, actually, as like someone who's not new to gaming but new to like I say, like the meta, like the games industry, principles of game development, stuff like that. First of all, I want to say that I really appreciate your enthusiasm in attacking those topics. And one of the things when you first started coming around my stream, you had like questions about that sort of thing, like what makes good game AI, like what is the relationship of developers and critics and that sort of thing, which is first of all was great for me because I love going into those topics on stream. But like how is it for, as a newcomer, is it like quite overwhelming how much there is to learn, or are you just excited by the challenge?
I would say it's a little bit of both. I think that like I've said it before, I'm a very curious person, and so there are I guess like Friday, right? Like there are pockets in the world that are that are so massive on the inside, right? That like they're so much bigger on the inside than they look. And I've encountered a few of these in the past, and so I'm not necessarily surprised that there's so much about gaming, right? I will say that like my attitude towards it has changed. That I think I was somebody who really enjoyed games for fun. I mean, I've been playing games all my life, you know, and I just never really gave it much thought. And learning about it now and really thinking about the storytelling aspects of it, and how you create an experience for a viewer or a player, right? And like what the philosophy of even the idea of a game is, right? Like what is the difference between something like Bloodborne that has no story, right? A lot of lore, but no real story, versus something like Last of Us, which is full of story, but like is kind of the same thing the whole game. Although Bloodborne is the same thing the whole game, but it's different, right? Like everything is like you're constantly challenged by the gameplay in Bloodborne in a way that you aren't in The Last of Us. The Last of Us challenges you on a philosophical level, I would argue. But
Ash,
but anyway,
when he said there's lore and universe building, I think what Walt is trying to say is it doesn't have a like a definitive experiential narrative.
Not a linear narrative.
There's no narrative.
I think that's precisely what Walt is saying. Actually.
Yeah, your main character is like a faceless like person who has journeyed there for healing, right? Like, or like a not a faceless person, but what I mean is like a nameless, characterless like being that is there to revitalize themselves through the blood magic, right? And along the way they encounter these beings. They don't really learn a whole lot. You have to go digging, but all of the story, I actually think the lore is fantastic. I think you can create like an HBO series out of that fucking lore, but I wouldn't make an HBO series out of the game. Does that make sense?
That makes literal perfect sense.
Did she read her comment?
We've talked about that on the podcast with Skyrim versus The Witcher.
Oh, she's giving me shit.
The big difference between Skyrim and The Witcher is we've always said is like The Witcher is very narrative heavy, right? You are Geralt, and you're taking it through the story of Geralt. There's also a lot of lore, of course. There's tons of it. Whereas Skyrim is you're a character, the Dragonborn. Could be of any one of a number of races in the Elder Scrolls, and it could be a male character, female character. There's no like
lizard.
Yeah, you could be anything, right? And there's no, but there's a for as less narrative as Skyrim has in The Witcher. There's 5 times as much lore because it's partly because it's the 5th game in a incredibly expansive RPG series. But so that's actually something we talk about a lot, the difference between narrative and lore.
I wanted to circle back real quick. Ash dropped an interesting question, I think, in the chat. She says, how has streaming
she didn't use the redemption for it, so we're not going to skip.
How has streaming changed your taste in games? And I think we could also kind of like tag that off of we kind of skipped over this, but how did you also get into streaming?
What's my story?
Yeah, man.
What was the first question?
How has streaming changed your taste in games?
Ooh, that's interesting. Well, I haven't really been streaming that long, so I think it's tough. That's a tough question to answer because I'm in a state of evolution. I mean, we're all in a state of constant evolution. One could argue, but I just mean that I'm.
You're in a transition.
This is your metamorphosis.
How is it changing?
Actually, here's one way that I could argue. This might be incredibly long-winded, but that wouldn't be a surprise.
Please. It doesn't matter. Go ahead. Yeah.
So what I'll say is that before really thinking about games and really thinking about the people that make them, what goes into making them, what goes into playing them, all of that. I am somebody who would have looked at The Last of Us before as like an evolution of games because it's less of like a traditional game and more like a movie, right? And now as I'm beginning to kind of appreciate games like as their own thing, I'm actually beginning to see The Last of Us differently, right? That like I'm beginning to see The Last of Us is a I think a beautiful piece of drama, I would say, and I enjoy the game as well. But what I mean by that is that a game isn't better because it's more like a movie.
Thank you.
In fact, I think a lot about like one of the things, because I get into a lot of different, like I said, I'm very curious. I get into a lot of different stuff, and so one big question I always have is kind of the question I mentioned before about that people have been asking about theater for a long time, which is what makes this and not something else, right? Like, what is it about games that nothing else can do? Because a film can do what Last of Us does, right? Maybe it can't do it in like as far into the level of experience, right? Because you're playing as Joel or Ellie. But even that is like, that's not leagues ahead of a film. That's like inches ahead of a film, in my opinion. But like, there are games.
Do you know about the Telltale series games where it's essentially just like it's just the movie
Walking
with like
Dead.
decisions?
You know the Walking
after,
Dead games?
like...
I don't know the Walking Dead games. I didn't know the Walking Dead had a game series. I know that they.
That's interesting. It's just usually when because I've had people before, like when they don't know Telltale, if I just say, the Walking Dead game, like with this little girl and this man, usually like somebody will just go like, oh, okay, I know those. I've never played them. They're fine. I like them. There was an issue with it. Was it like a year ago? I have no sense of time anymore. COVID has done that to me. Like, it's August and it feels like May. Anyway, but yeah, The Wolf Among Us is actually Ashley's very right. Wolf Among Us you actually might like.
I'd love to.
There's also a Batman one.
There is a Batman one. There's two Batman ones. There are two Batman ones. Batman season 1, season 2 is what it is. But yeah, they have like seasons pretty much. They were episodic. They're really good. I like them. I never played the last 2 seasons. 2, right? Yeah, 2 seasons of oh my goodness, of The Walking Dead. But there's a lot of them. So basically, like, the big thing about the Telltale series is that they were very comic book looking, but they were very narrative heavy. So do you know Life is Strange? Those games?
Yes. I've never played them,
it's
but I've
kind
heard
of like that. Yeah.
They're basically kind of like that, where you
Okay.
you maybe like can take control of your character for like a scene, and then a lot of it is like maybe you like go and you look at like something on the table, or you grab something to look at something, and then when you talk to somebody, you have a lot of choices, and then depending on how you play the game, like depending on the choices that you make, the ending might be different, or there are different things that could happen in the games. Basically.
Yeah.
You'd actually like quite a few of them. The Wolf Among Us is my favorite.
Okay.
And there was a huge thing because I don't know if you might have heard about it because it was on like gaming news like a year ago. But they were doing it was The Walking Dead last season. And it's called Telltale Games. That's what they're called. And It was such a weird thing. Nobody really knows exactly what it was, but apparently it was something that they did something really wrong, like financially somehow, like very quickly for some reason. And what ended up happening is, and I'm not joking, like there were people that had just been hired by this company. One guy moved cross country and like literally moved so he could work at the studio. And they laid off everybody. Like nobody got severance packages. Oh. It was something else. And a bunch of people got laid off. It was a huge thing actually because a lot of gaming companies were being like, hey, anybody who is like a Telltale employee, like send us your resume, we will take a look at it. We definitely have places for you guys here. And yeah, like one guy had gotten hired a week before he got laid off. It was a wild time.
Wow.
There was let me think for a second. So if I remember right, it was right in the middle of The Walking Dead season 4, which is the last season. They at first were like, so we're not doing anything more with The Walking Dead. Everybody who pre-ordered the game, which means like when you pre-order it basically with these games you're pretty much paying for all of the episodes. They're just not out yet. And so they pretty much cut the game off and they're like, sorry to everybody who pre-ordered this game, you're not getting your money back. And then I can't remember what it's called. It's called Sky something. It's the company that is run by Robert Kirkman, who does the Walking Dead comic book.
Right. Oh, yeah. He's a creator. Yeah.
Yeah. He actually took over the
president of Image. Yeah.
So he actually took over the Skybound. Thank you, Ash. Yeah. He actually took over his company actually took over the development for the rest of the games. I don't know if this is coming out of it or not, but I got so sad because The Wolf Among Us is one of my favorite games I loved it. It was really cool. Like, I love fairy tale stuff. So I don't want to spoil anything for it. But basically, if you've ever heard of the Fables series, it's a comic book series from like the 80s.
Oh no. They're talking about Fable the game. Sorry.
Fable. It's called Fables.
Okay.
And I love the series. So basically, it's about these fairy tale creatures like Snow White and Ichabod Crane, like Mr. Toad, like a bunch of those kinds of stories. Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella, like the Big Bad Wolf, Red Riding Hood, all of those. It's pretty much about these characters who came from the fairy tale world and basically made it over into at that time it was present time because they were made in the 80s, but to about 1980s New York City. And they live in this like little borough. In the city. It's so cool. And you play as the Big Bad Wolf. His name is Big B Wolf, and he is the sheriff. And it's so cool. And I don't want to say anything more about that because the game really is very good. And all the episodes have been out forever, so you can just play them one by one. I'm not telling you to stream it, but you would probably enjoy streaming it because it's very short. So I can beat it in a day. Like it's pretty short.
I see a buddy of mine actually, Garrison Ford, said Fables is great. You'd love it, but he's like a comic. How did you read it? Garrison Ford? Because I thought it'd be cool to read it too before. You probably
could find it online somewhere, but you might also be able to just find the comics being sold somewhere too. There's a bunch of them, and I think they've been kind of revitalized. Also, they're not too difficult to find. Actually, it's not like they're. It's not like a. It's not like it's a series that is like coveted. Like if you find it in a comic book shop, that it's going to be like $500 for one issue or anything like that. But it is a really good series. The game itself is really fun, and I was so sad when all of this happened with Telltale because I was like, that means no Wolf Among Us Season 2, and now I'm really sad.
Yeah, right.
But I couldn't believe this. Last year was it the DICE Awards? I think it was at the DICE Awards.
Like that. I don't remember. Was it? Yeah, something like Carry On. It was some award.
It was a video game award ceremony.
Was this one we were watching?
Yeah, we were watching together.
I think it might have been the Game Awards then.
It was the Game Awards, okay.
Yeah.
They actually, I don't know who's doing it yet. I actually haven't looked too much into it, but they actually are doing a Season 2 of it. So people can look forward to that so they can play this game and not just be like, oh, it's ended too bad, because there is a Season 2. Okay. But if you want to play it, don't look too much into it because there might be spoilers. But it's one of
Yes, I also haven't. I've only played the first episode at Morgan's, but I really liked it.
I think you would enjoy it. I mean,
yeah, I actually agree.
The ones are fine. I like them. And if you end up liking The Wolf Among Us, you could probably play the rest of them, and you might actually like them. But I loved The Wolf Among Us in particular.
Okay.
And there's a lot of Telltale games. Like, they even did a Borderlands
one. There's Borderlands, there's Batman, there's... The Batman one's a bit divisive.
There's a Game of Thrones one. But they didn't do much
about that. So I wanted to cycle back around to something Ash had asked, and I think is really
she spent the points we could actually ask.
Right. So this is I also really liked when you said that being more like movies doesn't make games better or more worthy as their existence as video games, especially as a player who's focused way more on mechanics than on narrative. I find that when people say that, it kind of like, I don't know, it activates like something in me that I feel like is truly not appreciative of a couple different things, which is not only that games mechanics can be their own end, but also that games are a technical endeavor as well as an artistic one. There's games that run really well, and that's an effort on the part of the programmers. And if it's an online game that runs really well, that's an effort on the part of the people who did the net code. And
well, you'd find a lot of friends with book lovers and theater lovers, and anybody that whose treasured works get adapted by film. And everybody gets excited about it, right? Because the idea is that if a film is going to adapt it, that's the best thing that could happen to that thing, is that it becomes a movie.
Well,
right?
I get excited, and then I also get simultaneously scared.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, oh,
you're worried about the quality of the adaptation.
What do you mean? Assassin's Creed was great. I don't know.
This happens all the time, right? Like, it happened to me with Inkheart, and it happened to me with Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember those movies. Those movies were
the Hobbit films.
Yeah.
let's
it's
not
the
forget
predominant art form of our society, you know. So it's like everything is going to get measured against like its efficacy as a possible film.
And it's my favorite art form. I might add that I prefer films to video games, and and that's why I look for that in video games. It's because I already got the other thing for film. But I'm curious for you, like, as I was really glad to hear you say that, what has been your journey towards making that realization? Has it been informed by the fact that you have played some pretty mechanics-focused games like Bloodborne?
Honestly, yeah, I think it's Bloodborne. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's Bloodborne in the sense that that I feel the same way about Bloodborne that everyone else does, right? That I'm like, oh my gosh, this is one of the greatest games of all time, and there's no narrative, right? It's not necessarily that. It's just that thinking about the impact that Bloodborne has had on the people who play it. And even going back to, I think, the discussion you and I had over DM, Rory, just about community, right? And where you find community.
Yes.
There's something about, okay, I got to take some journeys here. Because I remember somebody saying to me that Bloodborne really felt to them like an old school NES game. You know, like the old, like super hard, like, you know, you have to be really, really good at the mechanics to get them, and they don't, right? They're punishing in the sense that you can press pause on NES games, but you can't do that in Bloodborne, right? That like the game will punish you for certain things. You get no continues generally in an NES game, or else you get some, but then it's over, it's done. But thinking along those lines, I began to think about like games, that question about like, well, what makes a game and not anything else? What is it that a game can do that The Godfather cannot do? You know? And honestly, thinking about Nintendo got me thinking about classic games in general, and so the end was really for me in the beginning, which was thinking about like Tetris. It was thinking about like nothing except a game. Like Tetris can't be anything except a game, like a video game. It cannot be a board game. It can't be a movie. It can't be a book, obviously, right? It can't be visual. Play. It can't be visual art.
Not a good one.
Some people might. It could maybe be a gallery installation, perhaps. You know, but like it can't be anything other than a video game. And the amount of time you have to put into getting to the end of fucking Tetris. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the dedication, the focus, the technique, all of the stuff, same as Bloodborne, right? That like the purity of that experience is singular to video games and not to anything else. And you could not adapt Tetris to be anything else and make it better than it already is.
Are you saying that I'm good at Bloodborne because I got really into Tetris in my high school and like started doing speed time trials?
Dude, oh my god, Trev, I got super hooked on Facebook's Tetris Battle app where you can play competitive Tetris, and that was all I played. It was all I played for a year. No,
have you played? Anyway, have you played Tetris 99?
I have not played, and it might mess me up because I was playing it on a keyboard. It's on the Facebook app. I got to like the highest level. I was like a god of Tetris. That's like the highest you can get. God of Tetris.
Well, you might actually really like Tetris 99. It's do you have a Switch? I can't remember.
Yeah, I do. I do have.
You do. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's on the Switch. It's on the Switch. You can even play it with Melly. It is literally it's a battle royale Tetris. That's what it is. Yeah.
Oh my god! Yeah, I would love.
So I asked.
But anyway, that's the answer to my question. I think. Sorry.
No, not at all. So Ash had a question that I do want to get to, but I actually want to contextualize first. So because you said you referenced a DM, which obviously, you and I had. So like not to out our own personal conversations, but since you referenced it, but we didn't say what it was about community, I think we should at least contextualize what we said. Which we weren't planning a date or anything. Yeah. No. Yeah, like we.
Are you sure about that?
We were talking. Me and Walt had a conversation about what games have community and what games don't, and it's been I've had a gripe for literal years that people who play multiplayer games are like, well, multiplayer games are where you go for like the community, and single player games is just like, oh, you're some fucking loser sitting by yourself.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you guys were talking about Community, the show.
No, not the Dan Harmon show. No, although we could have many interesting conversations about that, I'm sure. And its rapid decline.
Interesting.
How confusing that must have been for you.
Yeah.
I was like, you guys must have been like really talking about something with community that had to do with gaming. Interesting.
But you know, it's kind of a like I've always thought that was kind of a bad attitude that multiplayer games had the monopoly on community and you streaming Bloodborne proves that, because who shows up to your stream? It's the fucking Bloodborne community, and you get to share your experience with them, and they get to share their experience with you. And some of the best streams that I've had were Skyrim streams, where other Skyrim players come in and like we discussed the ins and outs of the balancing of the alchemy mechanics. Spoiler alert, it's not balanced at all, Jesus Christ.
Neither is Stealth Archer. What do you mean?
Let's face it, Skyrim is a balanced nightmare. But beyond that, and I love it. But and that's something that's always gotten to me, and I'm really glad that you've seen that right away. Like, and also, I wanted. Can I just note something about your stream that I really like? Is you
please.
when you come into a new game, you know, you've come into a few new games now, Talos Principle, Bloodborne, you've played God of War. The way you play games versus the time they're released is, I think, the perfect way to play games versus the time they're released, because it's too late to be taken in by hype. Basically, you play games when they've stood a bit of the test of time. So one of my least favorite things people say about modern art is people are like, modern art is fucking garbage, and it's just like fucking urinals and shit. And it's like, that's like not true.
Or doing cocaine off a urinal.
One of the things we don't have in modern art is the test of time.
Sure.
Like, I truly believe there's as much good art being made now as there ever was. It's just...
But isn't that like a paradox? Because like if it's modern art and the test of time, wouldn't that not make it modern art?
That's what I'm saying, though. That's
it turns into not modern art.
We don't see we don't see which one of the stuff we're seeing is going to stand the test of time. You know? Oh my
god, though! But like everything that we celebrate today was considered a piece of shit by the people at the time. Or at least it was, it was breaking some kind of convention at the time, like the Impressionists, right? Like we love the Impressionists. But they essentially became the way that they became because the official academy would not let them in. And like, well, fuck you. We're not going to present at the academy. We're going to all group together. We're going to show our shit like down the street. And they exploded. People went to see them and they were like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. You know, but the establishment is never going to recognize anything that's going to kill it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And games are a beautiful thing in some ways in terms of their relationship, because we have indie games that make it directly to people through like Steam Greenlight and such sort of things. But I find when you play a game, it's like, it's just long enough to know it's past the honeymoon period. And so you can't get taken in by all the people who are like, Anthem's going to be the next big thing. Sorry, Eric. And then it turns out to be Anthem.
I mean, there are some things. I mean, I think probably Last of Us 2 was an exception, but that part of the only reason I even streamed that was just because I have been like, I've been a Nazi about my schedule. And I was like, well, I'm going to stream tonight, but I need to finish this game before it gets spoiled. Now that's paradoxical because it probably was more likely to be spoiled by streaming it. But I was like, I gotta stream this. Because I need to get it over with. I need it finished.
It's like a ticking time bomb with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I just say, as one of your mods, Walt, I was so fucking nervous when I heard you were going to be streaming Last of Us 2. Because there's so many pricks out there. But Ash's question, which I really liked, is so you have a relationship of mechanics-focused games versus narrative games. I do too. Trev does. And I think actually Melly has that relationship kind of sometimes in the opposite direction, where I think Melly really embraces like narrative complexity and narrative depth. And Morgan a little bit of both, actually. But what is how do you find streaming those sorts of games? Like, you've streamed God of War, narrative heavy. You streamed Last of Us, narrative heavy. Other side of the coin, you streamed Bloodborne, mechanics heavy. And I know we're talking about like Hitman and stuff like that. I know you want to try more stealth gaming. And that's all I can tell you from experience. That's mechanics heavy. How do you feel? Is there a difference between the streamability and the reward feeling of streaming those sorts of games?
I think so. I mean, there are games that I much prefer to play alone. I said perform. That's my interpretation.
You thespian.
I know, that's a total Freudian slip there.
Honest to God, though, like, you probably could do that, like, because like that's what I do on my stream, right? When I'm playing games that don't have voice acting, that's absolutely something you should do. because you would be amazing.
It is, though. The thing is, it is a performance. Anytime there's different schools of thought on this, but anytime you throw one person up or a group of people up in front of a bunch of other people, that is a performance. It doesn't matter if you're like a president giving an address, if you're a newscaster, if you're a professor giving a lecture, or if you're a streamer. Whether or not you recognize it, right? It is taking on essentially the trappings of performance. And you can, everyone kind of can live or die by that, but essentially it kind of is, but then it kind of isn't, right? Because I am just playing the game. But I think, I do think that like Road to Gehenna is a really great example. I was playing Road to Gehenna, which is the sequel to Talos, or it was a DLC, I guess, of Talos. And at some point, something had changed. Like I started by playing Talos, and it was a really wonderful experience because I had met people that I feel a strong connection to now in my channel by playing that game. And I was a new streamer or whatever, and so I hadn't figured myself out. Not that I've done it now, but I'm figuring myself out more. And when I returned to Talos, I found that something had changed in me where I'm like, I don't enjoy streaming this, because I think I found that I enjoy a game like Bloodborne, or even God of War to an extent, but I enjoy a game that is active, right? That like, it's almost like, because Bloodborne has no real narrative, you're just constantly doing things. You're either going for the blood echoes, or you're fighting big boss battles for hours, or you're trying to figure out where the fuck you're supposed to go. But you have something that you're constantly in motion with. And that suits me, I think, as opposed to a narrative sometimes where it's like, like you kind of get into a flow, you're having a conversation with people, and then the conversation continues, but then you got to stop and watch this cutscene, and you can't really watch it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so I don't know. That's definitely, I found that in terms of streamability, that playing a game, I think God of War was a nice balance.
Because that game is like mechanic and story. I think it does a good job at balancing both.
That game really appeals to. It's no wonder it has such a wide appeal because of that. I agree with 100% with what Trev says. It's mechanic and narrative, like almost perfect 50-50.
Yeah.
So the second part of her question was like, do you get more like, I don't know if like pleasure is the right word, but like, do you enjoy it more when you like finally beat a boss and like you're able to showcase that, or do you enjoy it more when you're able to showcase like a story and like how you react to the story?
Ooh, I don't think I can answer that. I think personally, I think I enjoy just beating a really hard boss. You know what? Beating a hard boss. You know why? Because that's is immediate
rush, isn't
it?
it?
Well, not only that, but the sense of community to me is much greater in a boss battle in Bloodborne than it is in Last of Us. If you're doing something like Last of Us, there are a bunch of people who've already played that game. They know what's coming. The show for them is watching you experience it, right? And so what you're sharing with them is kind of similar to like, you ever sometimes you got that friend who's like, you really got to see this movie, and then when you're watching it with them, you just constantly feel their eyes on you, like every time like a moment
watching, you're like expressions are like, all right, he better react this way when this part comes up.
Are you laughing at this joke?
Yeah, right. And it kind of puts you in this, it sort of puts you in this place like you're opening presents on Christmas. Do you know what I mean? Where you have to just be like, wow, oh my gosh, look at this.
Like the kid with the avocado. I was like, oh wow, an avocado.
Yeah. This thing is
an avocado.
I can see why you like it. That's my big one. I can see why you like it.
Yeah.
That's what I always did. Because most people know that I've worked at a game store before. So when people have come up to me and been like, hey, this game right here, what do you think of it? Have you played it? I'm like, I haven't played it, but I know people who have played it. It's not my thing, but I can see why people like it. That's what I always say.
It's a great answer, anything.
But in a story, that's what's happening, right? Like there are some people who've never played it before. Like when I was playing Last of Us, my sister had never. She enjoyed video games as a kid, but she does not have the time for them now. So she was just watching the stream and watching me play, and she was really getting into the story. And I think there was a nice sense of her experiencing the game, but that's like one individual. Whereas it doesn't matter how many times you've watched somebody play Bloodborne. You've never watched me play Bloodborne, right? And so I'm sitting here, and my rhythm of what I'm doing, how I'm learning it, how long it's taking me is very specific to that event. And so everybody, no matter whether they know what the battle is, or they know what the game is, they know what the lore is, or if they've never heard of it at all, everybody suddenly is united in this single desire for this fucking thing to be over. You know what I mean? And so like when it's over, there is this like immediate sense of relief that is shared among everybody. It's a total communal, like, I don't want to say spiritual experience, but it kind of is, right? It's like this thing that you share with everybody in like one simultaneous event, and everybody feels the exact same way, whether or not they react that way, or whether or not they react the same. Everybody has recognized that an event has occurred and we have all shared in it together. Versus when you're doing a narrative, which is a little different. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're the one playing it, you're the one experiencing that story, and it's different for you than it is for the other people watching it. And I feel like that's less true when you're doing something like.
I agree. One of the things we've talked about like a lot, actually, I think with almost every guest we've had, at least every guest who is a streamer, is, you know, are some games good stream games and are some not? And you've alluded to this. And I actually wanted to ask you like a question, like just a question I want to ask you generally, just for my own purposes. Like, so you played, I know you played some of BioShock. In fact, I remember the first time you played BioShock, because you were like DMing me being like, holy shit, this is so fucking good. Like, yeah. Because you knew I was a fan, right?
Yeah.
I tried streaming BioShock, and I did it for like 3 streams, and I realized I can't anymore. And it's because the game is so atmospheric that it's not just that I feel like I'm not experiencing BioShock the way it's meant to be experienced. I feel like I'm not giving my chat an honest impression of what it's like to play BioShock, to like feel helpless, to feel underpowered, to be in this new world with this like weird sort of Dostoevsky-esque Ayn Rand thing going on. And like, I feel like if I play BioShock, like, you won't know what it's like to play BioShock. Whereas like when you play Bloodborne, I feel like I know what it's like to play Bloodborne because I've cried, you know? Like, I know what that's like. Like, I know, I understand the experience of a stressful boss fight, but like,
oh my God, I think most of it was like, that's the first time I've seen Walt cuss this much. Was when she was watching Bloodborne.
Dude, I am. Yeah. Can you believe that when I started out, I was like, I'm going to try not to cuss. And I think
so, no, that doesn't happen.
Took care of that.
But some people can make it work. So, like, I wanted to ask you, like, if it was BioShock, would you feel the same way? Like, do you feel the same way about BioShock, or is that a game you could see yourself streaming? Like, it's just a total curiosity.
I've thought about it, and I even said, I was like, oh, I got BioShock, I'm planning on doing BioShock. And then again, it was part of that, something was changing within me, right? And I began to kind of develop a clear sense of like, you know what? It's just like being an actor, right? Where you're like, there are certain roles that you're like, oh man, I want to sink my teeth into that, man. I want the opportunity to really explore that. In a stream context, I feel like that's also true. That there are games that I see that I'm like, oh man, I want to stream that. Like, I want to, like, I feel like I can, right? I feel like I can stream that. And then there are other games like BioShock where I'm like, I don't think I can stream this. I think someone else could. But I don't think, like, there's something about it where, for many reasons, right? For personal reasons, where it's like, I think I enjoy just me playing it, you know, just like kind of like Gehenna. I think I just want the experience for myself of playing it. But also, yeah, there's just something about it that, like, I just didn't feel the inclination towards it. It became like a total intellectual thing where I'm like, oh yeah, I could stream Bloodborne, maybe I will. And the more they got into it, I was like, no, I just don't have that. I lost that love and feeling. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't.
I have a quick follow up, if that's okay, because I know, like I said, you're new to the game development side of thing and the, I guess, game theory side of thing. If that makes some sort of sense, like learning about the way games are made and what are mechanics focused games, what makes this game an action adventure game instead of a horror game. I remember when you were playing Last of Us, that's one thing you would ask to your chat: is this a horror game? Is this an action adventure game? And why?
Yeah.
What is the most interesting either question you have about game development still, or question you've had answered? Like, has there been a thing you've learned through streaming and through your audience that has stuck with you as like a realization or revelation about games that you can think of? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
No, it's okay.
Time to think about it. That's okay. Like
No, it's okay. I am in awe, and I guess I hope this answers the question. But my question that I haven't quite figured out, that I want to know the mystery. You know, I want to unravel the secret. Is how do you create that experience for people? Like, how do you create an experience on purpose? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's obviously there's ways that people mean for a game to be taken that the game is not taken. That happens pretty much in any art form, you know? But I think the idea of like most competent game developers hit somewhere around the bullseye, if not the bullseye itself, in terms of like, this is what we wanted to do with the game. I think we accomplished that generally. The game wasn't as much of a success, or we didn't do it as well as I had hoped, but it does what we set out to do, right? That to me, I'm kind of like, what did you set out to do exactly? Like, how are you able to kind of, it's actually similar to the way that I'm like fascinated by civil engineering, you know? Like, I'm fascinated by the concept of like, how do you know when the road is supposed to start curving off towards this ramp so that I don't kill myself? You know, like, how do you determine how can you dictate human behavior like that based on math and algorithms and actual studies of human behavior? And that's something about games that I don't know, and which I'm fascinated by as somebody whose livelihood is about contributing to an experience for an audience. That is fascinating to me, you know? So, like, yeah.
I have some articles to DM you after this. In that case,
great. I would love it.
There is some very precise work done on measuring algorithmic measures of difficulty, and
that's
like by balancing the factors of reaction time versus complexity of input and such sort of things that you can read about that like actually are like in the modern world of game development are becoming more a thing as AI testing becomes more of a thing. Like using AI to run your tests instead of, farming out an entire firm of QA developers and such sort of associated like employees, because people are expensive and they need dental plans and all sorts of stuff, right?
Well,
and so it's a cost saving as well as an efficiency endeavor. Fair warning, I'm going to DM you my master's.
Blow me up, baby.
It's all about AI and games. So,
press the big red button.
You're in no obligation to read it all, but if you read the intro and literature bit, that will give you hopefully an idea of some of the questions that you
or he's like, I'm going to demystify this for you.
That sounds great to me. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. That answered my question perfectly.
Great. Fall Guys? Fall Guys, anybody? Although it's super cool to like see, I don't know if this happens for like everybody that comes here, but it's just so cool to kind of be here and then just see people that you know from your channel just like pop in. Like, I feel so supported. And so I just want to say thank you to the people who it's tough to read chat because I'm just talking to you guys, but I just want to say thank you. Just thank you. That's so cool. What a cool experience.
You do have, I will say, I, being someone who mods for your channel, I'm prone to dislike your viewers, right? Because I have to, like, sort of like.
I don't think Roy dislikes anybody. To be fair,
you have to dehumanize them.
You essentially have to. Modding is a sort of tremendous exercise in pessimism and mistrust, right?
I've taught you well after all these instances.
Like watching out for people, right? You learn to recognize like spidey senses start going and stuff like that, right? But I will say, like, all jokes aside, I think you do have a very good viewership. And I'm not talking about the number of viewers, although that is also very good. I mean that your community seems to want you to really enjoy the things you're playing, and that's like positive, because sometimes you get communities that come in almost seemingly to discourage you from playing something, and but you have a community that they love Bloodborne and they want you to love Bloodborne with them.
They really do.
And that
really
well, he loves it enough to get the DLC, so that's already step one in the right direction.
Exactly. Like Travis here loves Talos, right? And I remember he was in your Talos streams and stuff like that. And Travis, I know for a fact, because I know Travis, he wants you to love the games you're playing. You know, like
Yeah.
he wants you to experience them and love them like he does, right? So I have to ask, in your encounters with other I mean, you've talked to us before individually fairly extensively, and as a group, you know, you've been here at SBH before in the chat.
Yeah.
Is there a game that you really look forward to because you know it has a strong presence in our community, like we all like it, or a subset of us really like it, that you're like, oh, I can't wait to play that because Trev said that game was the shit? Like, is there a game like that?
Not that I can. It's tough because my head is so full of like potential games. I will say that like I'm intrigued by Final Fantasy because I've never played a Final Fantasy game, and it's one of those. I think one of the reasons that I'm intrigued is that I always kind of just secretly like look down on it. Do you know what I mean? But like in the way that like I just get annoyed by. I got really annoyed by my music theater friends who just sang Rent all the time when I was in high school. You know, and I was like, shut up, you know, kind of a thing. But of course, right? Of course, it's its own thing for a reason, you know? And I think that, like, it was one of these things that I never had a personal experience with Final Fantasy, and I never really had a really good friend who played it that showed me, you know, what was so
like
great
wanted
about
you,
it.
like, kind of encouraged you to, like, hey, try this game.
Just
which is
make
really
sure
important.
You use iron bangles and
Iron bangles.
Oh my God, Ash.
Okay.
Ash is not happy. Ash is not happy.
But yeah, that's the thing,
Don't
though.
worry,
like-
I went through this with Ash before about something else. It'll pass.
This is just, I mean, yeah, well, that's the thing. It's just the natural. It's just sometimes you have something that you don't realize that
progression, right?
Yeah, you don't realize you could love
bound
it
to happen.
until you don't love it, or until you love it. It's other, right? It's like something that's something that those FF people do, and it's specific to those kinds of people. I'm clearly not an FF person, right? Or at least you think that about yourself until. I've been but I was watching the Final Fantasy when Mel was streaming it, and when Ash was streaming it, and I was like, I don't know, that maybe I had been sleeping on this series.
I think the part of you that enjoyed God of War that does like the balance between mechanics and story. I think that if the Final Fantasy VII remake, that would be in that lane. I think for you.
I will say that
the combat system is very deep and complex. And I think that part of it would probably be a good challenge for you, but then it does have, you know, the narrative components to it.
Well, it's a really interesting thing too when it comes to games that you haven't played that actually does have a huge standing in other communities, right? Because everybody has heard of Final Fantasy, right? Everybody's heard of Legend of Zelda. Like, what's another like big game series? I'm trying to think of one.
Well, like, is it Metal Gear Solid?
I guess,
Metal Gear Solid's a great example, actually, because that has a huge community following.
The Soul
a lot of people
series
know about Metal Gear Solid.
I don't know God of War, but Soul series definitely, and then
even Dark Souls,
actually.
Even Dark Souls for something that is as even though it's as new as it is technically, but like when it comes to like Mario, everybody's heard of Mario, everybody's heard of Sonic, you know, like whether like
Pokemon,
it's
all those.
Pokemon, yeah. But there's so many instances where like, oh yeah, I've heard of this game since forever. Like actually Pokemon is a really good example too, because I know so many people who've played Pokemon, but I also know so many people who have not played Pokemon, but they know what Pokemon is, and they definitely have heard it. They've watched maybe at least an episode of the TV show. That it's had such a standing in a whole bunch of different communities, but you just have never thought. And it's not that you hate the game, right? It's just that you didn't really have an opportunity to play it. I knew people like that didn't have an opportunity to play it because maybe they didn't have a Game Boy, right? Or maybe they didn't have an older sibling that had a Game Boy that they would let them play on every once in a while, right? I was a lucky one because I was a kid. Like I had 3 older brothers. All 3 of them were super into video games. And so I actually started getting into video games because of them. But it wasn't until like, I mean, it's probably been a good decade now. It seems like only a few years ago that I really started getting into like narrative-based games because I played like a lot of Harvest Moon and like Mario Party and stuff like that when I was a kid. But it wasn't much for like narrative-heavy games until not that long ago. But I've been playing. I mean, maybe besides games like Pokemon, I suppose. But because of like where I was, my brothers wanted every system. and it was easy also for like my parents, because it would basically be like, oh, well, all 4 kids want like a Wii, so we'll get that for them for Christmas, and be like, hey, to all the kids from Santa, you know. So it was easy because of that. But my brothers always wanted those systems, and when they got the newest system too, I got the hand-me-down of it, so I was able to play all of those games. So that's one of the reasons why, for me, like, I've had all of the systems, I've played most of these games because of that. But I definitely know people who like they've never played Legend of Zelda, or they've never played Pokemon, and it's not because they just didn't want to, but because they never really had that chance, or that person, like maybe they didn't have that friend where you'd go over to their house and you're playing, and they're like, hey, I got this new game, Legend of Zelda, like Twilight Princess or Ocarina of Time, you want to try it or watch me play it? And there's just a lot of people that never had that opportunity either. And it's interesting because Final Fantasy is one of those. Like, I never saw somebody get so into Final Fantasy before than Melly, because like Melly played Final Fantasy 7 remake, and she was like, I want to play all these games now. And I mean, I know, but like she really wants to try a whole bunch of these games. And it's really interesting, you know, when that happens, because like I said, it's not that you just hate the game and you never wanted to play them, it's just you never got to.
It just didn't fall into my lap, man, you know. Like I just
then you try one and you're like, oh my god, where has this been all my life, you know?
That's how actually,
because at the same time, I'm so sorry, at the same time you're sad because it's like, I really wish I had gone into the series a lot earlier. Like that's kind of how I was with The Legend of Zelda, because I actually didn't really get into The Legend of Zelda until I was in high school. And I wish I had, like, I watched my brothers play them, I watched my cousin play them, and they were cool and all, but I never really played through them until the one of them came out on the Wii. And I was like, this is really cool. And then I played a bunch of them in like a month. And I was like, I really wish I had grown up on these, you know? But it's still nice because you at least are experiencing them, but you kind of wish that you had been experiencing them, you know, since they had come out.
Yeah, there's a bit of FOMO that happens, right? Where it's like everybody starts talking about their childhood experiences, about like the narrative, and that they can actually speak with experience to like the difference between the remakes and the originals. And that's something I probably won't ever really be able to do, because I won't be able to like get around to like I really love the RE2 remakes, or I love the RE remakes I've played 2 and 3. But like I don't have an appreciation for what that series is and what it means and what those remakes actually mean, you know? And I'm there's like a sadness to me about that, where I'm like, oh, I just want to be one of the cool kids, you know, like I want to be one of the cool RE kids that gets to talk about this, but I won't. You know?
To me, that's what the RE remakes are for, to be honest, is for
to
people
bring in
like
new people.
You know, like that's one of the main things I think is special about them, is there's so many new RE fans that have been generated because of these remakes, right? Because they're so good. They're such good. They did such a wonderful and respectful job that it's great to see players like you who have not played, you didn't play RE1 back in the day. So it's like perfect.
I still haven't played it. I still haven't played the remaster.
For what it's worth, I think what your answer to the question, which was Final Fantasy, is a great and brave choice.
There are a lot of them. Good luck.
Yeah, there are a lot of them. I would say it's almost perfect. The actual correct answer was Dishonored, but you made a good go of it. I'll give you that.
That's right, Dishonored. Of course I wanted. Well, I mean, Dishonored. The thing about Dishonored, I mean, I have seen streams of it too. Yeah, no, I do. Dishonored is definitely one.
Which I don't know if it's on sale, but you can get it on GOG right now if it's on sale.
No, he can't get it on GOG. I already got it on GOG.
That's right. It's already been. Yeah, it's Santa put it in my stocking.
Actually, well, I had a question for you. So you had sort of like a stint where you were actively workshopping speedruns for Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil. Most of
Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
Leon B hardcore.
Yeah, Leon B.
That's what I was saying. Leon B. hardcore.
Are you interested in revisiting speed runs either for Resident Evil or for any other games?
He's gonna speedrun Bloodborne.
Or Bloodborne. Are you
That's the next
interested
step.
in
The next logical step.
I just watched Distortion. I was watching Distortion do some Bloodborne.
I watched really good.
And I watched him do the RE2 speed runs. He was one of the guys that like really got me like into the idea of speedrunning RE2. And I watched him do the Bloodborne. I was like, I can't. This is crazy.
You say that now, but there was a time you didn't think you could beat Ludwig, and then you did. So
That's true. No, you're right. You're right. I could definitely get into I don't think that RE3 is. I don't get into the idea of speedrunning RE3. There's something about the way it's designed.
I think a lot of people don't like. I think the speedrunning around that game kind of died out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean RE2 though. I love that game. I think that might be one of my favorite games, which is so fucking weird. I don't even like the story. I don't even like the story of RE2. It's a bad '90s movie. Like if you know what I mean. If you were gonna like put it up on the screen, it would be a terrible '90s movie. But damn it, there's something about the playability of that game that it's like, I don't know, it's just like sitting in like, it's just like being Batman in the Batmobile. It was just like perfectly designed for the way you move and think, and you know, it feels good. Like, it feels so good to play RE2 for me. I think Friday was the same reason. Maybe that's why I really like got into Friday, because it just felt something about it was like, this feels right. You know,
you're like,
also,
this feels like the real skin of a killer. Like, I can relate.
Also, if I can plug something real quick, because since we were talking about speedruns, I had said something about games done quick. It's actually, they actually had to, they usually do one in June. It's usually, I think, around January and then June. They do 2 a year. They actually had to push theirs back because of COVID, and it's gonna be starting on the 16th. If I can say. They're going to be doing, it looks like the Witcher Wild Hunt, which I guess, let me see, takes about 2 hours to do, it looks like. That's what they're saying.
I thought you were going to say something ridiculous, like 20 minutes. I was like, what?
Yeah. I mean, you never know when like a glitch is allowed run, what can be done. Yeah,
so it looks like, and it's an any % old patch for the PC. It takes about 2 hours and 12 minutes to get through. They're also going to be doing the Talus Principle, all sigils, which they can do under an hour.
Morgan.
What?
They're doing
I want to
Oblivion.
see that.
Do you want to watch it?
Yeah.
Me and Morgan introduced me to this event earlier this year for AGDQ, and I was hooked immediately. And we watched each other's like favorite games being speedrun, and it was amazing.
Oh, that's cool. That's so sweet.
So, looks like they're also doing Alien Isolation, all missions, Nightmare. No, I'm not sure what CC. What's CC? Mel, I mean, I know you played.
Crowd control? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Well, it looks like they can do that in 3 hours. I'm just looking at the. They're doing Jet Set Radio. Oh, goodness gracious. It's pretty cool, actually. Like, they do a whole bunch of different kinds of games, and the best thing about it, the one big reason why I actually really like it is the reason why they do it in the first place is that they are actually doing it. It's gamers coming together to do speed runs for charity. That's the big thing about it. So AGDQ, I think, is usually, I can't remember which one it is. They do AGDQ, which they call Awesome Games Done Quick. It's just the winter one. And then SGDQ is Summer Games Done Quick. They usually do Doctors Without Borders, and then I think I can't remember what exactly it's called. It's like the Fight Cancer Society or something.
I don't think it's St. Jude. I think it's
It's not St. Jude, no.
I know what you're talking about. I should know this because I used to watch it all the time.
It's Prevent Cancer Society.
Yes, yeah.
That's what it is. Or Prevent Cancer Foundation. So they do, basically you can, it's actually really cool. You can do donations, like you can donate, I think it's $5 is the minimum, and they do like little blocks for things. So like during a certain block, you can maybe perhaps win something if you donate a certain amount. You have a chance to win something, and then at the same time, you're also donating to a really good cause. And it's really great because, like I said, they usually do Doctors Without Borders and Prevent Cancer Foundation. And they, I think, 1 year raised $3 million, I want to say, throughout the entire event. And it's just all gamers coming together doing it. And I think it's super, super cool and for a really good cause. And it does start on the 16th, guys. So if you do want to check anything out, I was just looking through to see if there's anything else.
DMC4.
There's one.
Everybody watch DMC4. They're doing Neurodante.
Yeah, like they did a Untitled Goose Game for
that was so much fun.
AGDQ.
They did it twice, actually.
They did it twice. They did, like, there's one that can do in like 5 minutes, or was it 15 minutes for without glitches, and then with a glitch it was like a minute. It's really interesting. Pringles the video game, guys, at 1:07 a.m. They can do it in 5. They can do it in 5 minutes. This is interesting.
Wow. I wanna see the speedrun for Anthem and how quickly you can shut it off and
They're doing
stop
Baldur's
playing.
Gate Enhanced Edition. That takes 13 minutes, it says. Billy Hatcher? I didn't know anybody remembered what Billy Hatcher was. This is cool. Yakuza Kiwami 2. Oh my god, I'm watching this. But it's really cool. Like they do a whole bunch of different ones. There's Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. There's a whole big schedule on it and everything.
Travis, like, how fast for Baldur's Gate? That motherfucker took me forever.
I think it said 38 minutes.
Wow.
Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. It's the Legacy of Baal % current patch PC. It takes about 38 minutes.
Wow. I love watching PBQ.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things. I'm happy that they're doing Horizon Zero Dawn too. Takes 55 minutes for that one.
I think my favorite one to watch last time was Resident Evil 4. They did it like an hour and a half.
Final Fantasy VII Remake. They can do in 7 hours and 20 minutes any percent normal.
That's not much of a speed run.
My favorite run from AGD. Well, it's tied. Okay, so definitely Untitled Goose Game, because Morgan loves that game so much, and like being on the phone with her watching it was so much fun because she was so excited about the speedrun. So that's like my number one. But like for me personally, in terms of like the one that I enjoyed watching the most, I would say DMC 5, because Trev, he one hits Virgil. Fuck, spoilers. God damn it. Yeah.
It's been a year, alright?
Yeah. Anyways, he does a very impressive like one hit, and I was like, wow, that took me forever, and I was tired, and I was like, I need to beat this before I go to sleep. It's late. Like, and I was just super impressed. Also, hi Dinosaur.
By the way, it is one of the last ones that they are doing it looks like for SGDQ. It's on August 22nd at 4:12 p.m. Bloodborne, all bosses, takes an hour and 30 minutes.
There you go, Walt. That's your time to beat. Get on it.
So you have to do it. You have to do it before August 22nd. Before 4:12 p.m. and then you can finish it, and then you can just restream this.
So
yeah, it's a really great time. I like it. And it's for a good cause. I think it's amazing.
It really is, yeah. And it's a super fun stream, and the casters are so knowledgeable. So at the end of the podcast, we do a couple different things. We're gonna have a bit of a speed round of questions here with Walt for questions that the audience asked earlier. Also, if you have any last minute questions for Walt, now's the time to ask them. So if you say it, I'll remember it or write it down or something, so you don't have to worry if it like gets about it getting buried.
Well, if you do it via redemption, it shows up on the list, so I can just read it off the list. That's why.
That's true. Yeah. If you do a point redemption, yeah. If you're new here and don't have any points yet, though, feel free to fire them off. This is a total. Guess it round,
sucks to suck. No, I'm just kidding.
Money's not real for the next 5 minutes, and by money I mean channel points, which are also not real.
Walt, Ghost wants to know: did you ever know that you're my hero? I guess he wanted you to sing the song.
I skipped that question.
Can you fly higher than an eagle? Because I'm the wind beneath your wings. I think that.
The Invisible Woman wants to know favorite Twitch Sings performance.
Ooh, good question.
Favorite Twitch Sings performance. Oh gosh.
The question is of yours, like of yours.
Of mine?
Is that what that means?
Well, yeah, it's a question redeemed for the guest.
It could be of anybody's.
So.
That's how I read it.
Answer both. Answer one.
Yeah, just to be safe, do one of yours and one of someone else's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
the ACDC.
I don't know. I'm trying. Oh god.
ACDC better get it. ACDC deserves this fucking title. Okay, like that was. I was on that.
I did lose my mind on that.
I was sitting there. I was like, I thought Walt was singing. I was like, why is the guy from Actuate ACDC singing? I was like, what is this?
That was pretty fun. I lost my mind because I was just so. I mean, I couldn't actually be a frontman for that band, so I just blew my voice out. I just like went for it. Which apparently that's what John Lennon did when he did Twist and Shout. He just like it was the end of the recording session. He was
sick as well.
Yeah, and he
was under the weather.
Lost it. Yeah, he just went for it. So it's like that's what I'll do. I'll just be like John Lennon.
That's why if you listen to like live performance of that song, it never sounds like the record.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
Once in a life. Did you know actually? I'm assuming you know Chris Isaac's Wicked Game.
Yeah.
They can't replicate that Strat sound on the guitar. Like
Really?
there was just like they like using the same guitar, same amp, same everything. They have never gotten it to sound the way it sounds on the record. Like there was just whatever.
Wow.
There was like a freak. It was a freak sound that day. And that's why that guitar has so much more presence than usually the neck pickup on a Strat has.
Oh, that's
Like,
beautiful.
I've tried it with reverb and MFD pickups, and like I can't do it.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. I guess that's what I'll say. I guess I'll say AC/DC.
Good. I know we peer pressured you into making that answer,
Yeah.
and I'm almost sorry about it. So, who was your favorite?
Scar though? Scar is fun to do too.
Who was your favorite performance of someone else's?
Favorite Twitch performance. You know, the funny thing is, it's tough because I don't watch a lot of solos. Because I'm usually looking.
But
at
you were in a party, like you could say Rory's when he did whatever
That's
song he did.
right. That's right.
Whatever song he did, Rory's done Twitch sings like them twice, 3 times.
You know what? Actually, can I say? Actually, this is a good one. I would, one that I think about a lot because when I think about it, it cracks me up. I didn't even watch it because I was playing Road to Gehenna and I just had it on in the background. But it cracked me up listening to Mel do Thrift Shop.
Oh God.
I missed that.
That's not what I thought you were gonna say.
And for some reason, I'm driving around and I just hear Mel in my head going like, "They had a broken keyboard. I bought a broken keyboard." I just keep replaying over and over in my head.
That's
So I thought it
good.
was a wonderful comedic.
And
Holy shit, Mel!
I
Tell
bought
me
an
you
e-board.
saved that. Is that a highlight, Mel? Please?
I know. I don't think I did. I don't think I did.
Now
Because
you
I-
need to redo it.
No,
It
because
was half a
it's hard. I stumbled over the lyrics. It's hard to rap correctly.
That performance has actually driven me to learn that song so that I could perform it.
I'm never
Really?
missing another
Yes,
Melly
because,
stream.
that song sounds
I will duet that with you. So
Oh my god, we
hard.
should.
Let's
Can
do
we?
it.
Oh my god, can we please?
Honestly, like
There we go.
listening to Melly sometimes sing, because she has the voice of an angel, of a goddess. That she sang songs before that I hadn't really heard much of, and it makes me want to learn it. Because I'm like, this is an amazing song, and I really want to learn it. Like, I still have not watched Hamilton, and I know exactly how to do Satisfied because of Melly, because she made me want to listen to it,
Oh,
and
that
so
was-
I learned it.
I'm sorry. I have to amend my answer. That was my favorite performance. I couldn't record it because of DMCA. But I did the first 3 songs of Hamilton on open mic. I
remember that.
I remember that.
That was a
remember that.
fucking marathon, and I was like, "Damn that!" But that was fun. That was fun. That was probably it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
That's a great answer.
your first
great
your first Twitch sing stream ever was legendary.
That's right. That was yeah. I think I did it for 6 hours. I think I sung.
You sang for
6 or
6 hours.
You were on,
Jesus.
you were on for a really long
7
time.
hours.
Without a party. I can't go that long.
That's
without-
right. I just didn't
I've never-
realize that was not something you should do.
I've never played guitar for 6 hours. I don't think just straight like that. I need a break. Damn, I'm
It was insane.
the follow or be banned. That's good. That's what the shout out command should say. We
Follow or
need to
die.
fucking fix that.
Oh my
The,
god.
by the way, at Streamers Become Human, Walt is the thing with.
No, we
Oh,
know.
yeah,
we're in the
I-
chat. Yeah.
I'm mod.
They all know. Yeah, they
I
all
know
know
you.
you.
I know you from over there.
I know you.
Yeah.
I can edit the caster wanted to say that. I'll do that.
Oh,
I'll
I'd
do
love
afterward.
That'd be brilliant.
It
They,
would,
Alright,
it would really encapsulate what Streamers Become Human really is. So
yeah.
Next
follow or be
question
banned.
Follow or die.
They so
is you don't think Romeo and Juliet is just remade constantly and recycled rather than actually dead?
I didn't say
it was.
Romeo.
I'm sorry. No. It's a reference. So I remember the contextual cues for this one. So you had made a statement that you don't feel like we should keep doing Romeo and Juliet the way it was exactly done in Shakespeare's time. And
No.
I believe the question for you specifically is: do you mean we should never do that, or do you mean we should stop doing it as often as we're doing it?
I think that museum theater has a place.
Mhm.
You know, same way like on stream. Like I think watching people play like old things has its place. I don't think that we should. I don't think it should have I don't think it should be the main place.
You don't think it should have as much of a monopoly as it does?
Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, people do all kinds of whacked out stuff with Shakespeare and with anything. But I do think that it is good. Like Shakespeare has its place. It helped build the English language. I mean, it's helped build Western society. You know, and so in some ways we owe a great deal to it. But that doesn't mean that what we owe it is for it to be constantly done in place of new voices and new perspectives that aren't specific to a guy like Shakespeare in his day, about women or about like people that aren't Shakespeare, right? Like, and so while I do think, you know, he has there's wonderful aspects to what he did. I mean, he was able to like take a character like Shylock, who was a Jew, and as a kind of a despicable character in that play, and give him that hath not a Jew eyes speech, right? Which is a very complicated thing because, like, you know, I mean, Shylock is despicable. But what I mean by that is that, like, it's good to do Shakespeare and it has its place. And I like that when people do it, they warp it and fuck with it and change it. It deserves that. That's what it should be doing. And we also should be doing maybe less Shakespeare and doing more of, like, new shit, I guess is what. Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up? Actually, I know this is like the speed round and this is bad form, but like,
is this?
You when you mentioned about like new voices and stuff like that, and also on new maybe societal perspectives on old works of art. First of all, I agree, like only 10,000%. But I would say, do you find a similar thing with because I find it with music composers. Like when we talk about composers, we tend to be absorbed in Tchaikovsky. You know what I mean? Right. And such sort of things. And we don't as often talk about modern composers. We talk about a lot of modern singer-songwriters and modern bands. But I feel like I feel like modern composers are really underrated. Like I know you've played The Outer Wild, right? And I know you know that you have played The Outer Wilds, right? Did I make that
Outer
up?
Wilds. Oh yeah.
Not Outer Worlds, not the Obsidian game. Yeah.
Right. Outer Wilds.
Outer Wilds has a really well composed soundtrack, right? But we don't talk about the guy that wrote the Outer Wilds soundtrack. We still only seem to ever talk about Tchaikovsky, you know, and other associated people, right, and Bach and stuff like that, right? And obviously that work is timeless, just like Shakespeare's work. Shaped, you know, the English language in some ways. I'm sure that our perception of music was shaped by the Chakan, but like I feel that we need more modern voices in composition as well. And I'm wondering if that's something you've encountered, because I know you like. I know you can sing. I'm not sure about your musical background, but I know you like music. Is that your sentiment as well with music?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are. In terms of the way we train people, perhaps there's aspects of what Beethoven or Mozart did in their work that, like, it's so deep, right? That, like, one of the reasons that it survived is because you can keep going back to it and finding new things, because it's just such a deep piece of work, you know? And perhaps we have gotten less of that as we've gone on, right? I think that, like, pop, like the prevalence of pop music. Well, I love pop music, but what I mean is that, like, it's more instinctual, right? It's more about, like, picking up a guitar and just kind of, like, throwing your emotions into it, which Beethoven did, but he also, like, you know, it also had to make mathematical sense for him, right? It had to obey, like, certain rules and had certain limitations. And anyway, it's just very, very deep. And so I think that, unfortunately, we won't be talking about those people who are doing whatever that is now. I think we should make room for them. But just with theater, right? The people who are breaking open what theater is, like, nobody's buying tickets to it. You know? And, like, people aren't buying those albums. But it'd be good to, it would be great to, like, give them some sort of spotlight, or it'd be nice too if people were just more interested in finding the weird shit, you know? Like, for lack of a better term. Like, what's the weird shit people are doing, you know?
Yeah,
So.
That answers my question perfectly. Trev, do we have any more speedrun questions?
Yeah, we got 2 more.
Okay, yeah, far away.
This one, I don't know if this is a troll question or not, but there's a woman. What's your anagram? I don't know what that is. I don't know.
My Enneagram.
I don't know.
Oh,
how
it's
to
like
pronounce
a-
it.
Enneagram. Which test is that? What's the answer to it look like?
Mel knows.
Is it the 4 letters?
No, it's a 9 profile.
The 9 type?
The
9
4
archetypes.
is,
It's the 9 classical archetypes.
The 4
Oh.
is
On
the
stream one time, didn't we?
Briggs-Meyer or whatever, isn't it?
Actually, we were playing Monster Hunter,
Did
and
we do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
not only do we do it, but Melly told me and Morgan that our types means that it will probably be a very long time before our first fight. I remember Melly did like an analysis. Like,
Yeah, right when you first then like this is why you guys probably won't fight for 2 years. And this
they,
And you're like, oh, it looks. I'm an Enneagram 5.
You're 5?
5. Which
I'm 7.
or 7. It took me a while. I tested. I think it was like a 5, 6, 7, or at least I thought I might have been one of those, and I turned out to be a 5. I don't remember what the kind of what sealed the deal for me in terms of like, oh yeah, but just the more I would kind of delve into it, it made the most sense for me to be.
Do you mind if I read the description of 5? Do you mind just for people here? So 5, the investigator, the intense cerebral type, perceptive, innovative, secretive, and isolated. And for what it's worth, my type was 7, which was the enthusiast, the busy, fun-loving type, spontaneous, versatile, distractible, and scattered. Wow, thanks. Wow, they like you more than they like me at this institute.
Yeah, sometimes it comes down to the types that write it.
I think if I remember right, I was like 9 and 2. I think.
9 and
what I
2.
was.
you were a 9, I think.
Yeah, I remember.
It's
yeah.
funny you came out to me as a 7 because I thought you were a 5, Rory. But
That's
when you
interesting to me.
Yeah, because I think you and Walt are very similar in the way that you very much are about acquiring knowledge.
I agree.
Which is like the main driver for a 5.
I'm a
It's just
Ravenclaw.
The pursuit of knowledge is a
Oh yeah,
key driver.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ice. I appreciate that.
All right, and then the last question here is, can you do a Firefly themed stream, like a brown sport the brown coats? And then I hope Melissa gets that reference.
It was Ice.
Oh, Ice Dragon, yeah.
Yeah, Ice was making a reference for Melly. Have you seen Firefly, Walt?
I've seen the first couple episodes of Firefly.
And
oh
then
man,
you
how
stopped,
have you not, considering that you're friends
and
with
then
Mel?
you just stopped to become a heathen. You were just like,
I was like, I prefer being a Philistine.
Like,
You're like, fuck it, I don't need this in my life. I don't.
How did I feel about Firefly? This is the tough thing because
if Ash is still here, you might want to.
No, it's fine. Ash and I,
okay.
I have a slew of unpopular opinions that I don't mind airing out. But I liked Firefly actually. I just wasn't. Maybe because I was watching it with my wife, and maybe I don't think she was getting into it. And it was one of those things where I was like, all right, well, I can just pick it up myself, and then I didn't.
And just never did.
Yeah, so I got to go back. But I can appreciate. Listen, I am not a Whedonite though. Like some people are like huge Joss Whedon fans. I am not a huge Joss Whedon fan. I can appreciate the universe building, and I can appreciate all the work that it takes for him to do what he does, right? And like creating something like that's so postmodern and like fun, like Buffy, and also I guess like Firefly, right? But
thanks for using that, by the way, postmodern.
Oh yeah, well he totally is though. He is such a product of that kind of like Gen X, like meta, right? Like things that draw attention. His dialogue draws attention to itself, right? Like he's clever and he knows it, and he wants you to see it, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
James Marsters on Buffy actually said that was a barrier to watching the show. Was you wouldn't be able to watch Buffy unless you had a sense of irony. And I kind of agree. Just by the title alone.
That makes sense. And so yeah, with Firefly, like I think there are aspects of it that I think I appreciate. Like I love the junk universe aspect. I love junk universe, like in sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly the idea of it being a Western. It's not the first time I've seen space treated like a Western, but
Sure. Yeah.
there are aspects of it I really like. I just couldn't. I don't know why is. I like Nathan Fillion. I like the cast. Maybe I should pick it back up and watch it.
All jokes aside, though, I really do like Firefly. Really isn't for everybody. I had me and Morgan got to watch it somewhat recently. I'd seen it many years ago, but I got to watch it with Morgan for the first time. I was glad to see she really enjoyed it. But I've also had friends who they started watching it and like honestly gave it a fair shake, and it really just didn't hit home because there's a lot of sort of actually like sort of precise taste things in that show. But
it's interesting about Whedon. I think that you can kind of see what his limit. Like once he got handed bigger IP, you could see where some of the limitations came. Right. That like I think where he specializes is in being able to kind of create sort of like upstart premises, like a Buffy or like a Firefly, or even like his Much Ado. Right. That these kind of like smaller scale, sort of like an independent kind of feel to them. And I think what he did with Avengers was an incredible feat. I mean, that was an impossible job, and he like pulled it off. But I think that even where you wanted to see him go, like his kind of failed experiments with Avengers 2, that the studio wouldn't let him do, and I'm glad they wouldn't let him do it. But you can kind of begin to see like he doesn't do that, you know, like he does the Firefly thing very, very well. He doesn't quite do the bigger stuff.
So as much of a fan as I am of his work, and me and Morgan are working our way through Angel right now, you know, and that would be for first time watching that. As much a fan as I am of his work, I do feel like he is an overvalued part of his team. Like you said, I like what you said, where you said he creates premises, right? He creates premises, and other people, including him, populate it with, you know, interesting narratives. And I feel like people got way too excited when it was like written and directed by Joss Whedon. I'm like, where the fuck is the rest of the people that help him do this shit? Like, you know what I mean? It's like he has a whole team of like Marty Noxon and David Greenwalt and people who helped him along that way and really did it with him, but he got the name recognition. You know, he got the, you know, like sort of like not to like speak ill of the dead, but he got the Steve Jobs thing. You know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, a lot of people worked here and built this product, and it's like, but people are like, Steve Jobs built this iPod, and it's like, he really did not.
I wanted to address something, if it was okay, with something Ice Dragon said that is interesting. It kind of struck me that if he loves Doctor Who and Star Trek and sci-fi, I thought he'd know Firefly. And something that I've kind of discovered about myself, actually, is that I am not a what's the word? I don't know what the right word is. Dilettante is the one that keeps coming up, but that has such a negative connotation. But I'm not really I'm not beholden to any one kind of thing, right? Yeah. Like I'm not a sci-fi guy or a horror guy, or I don't I'm not anti-Western, for instance, right? That like I'm drawn to, I don't know why that I'm drawn to the things that I'm drawn to and the things that I'm not, but I have found that, right? Like I have found that I don't just love something because it checks off certain boxes, if you will. Like I've found that there's something that's full here and empty here, and I can't explain what it is, but this doesn't fill me up, even though it looks just like all this other stuff, you know. And I, being a 5, I guess, right? Like I spend a lot of time trying to figure out like why it is that I keep watching this and I don't watch this.
I super relate to this.
Yeah, like it because yeah.
You want to understand your own heuristics.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because I know you do, because there's so much entertainment in the world. We all have heuristics we apply to prune the branches on that search tree and be like, I can't watch everything, so I need to just chuck a bunch of stuff in the fucking trash because I think it won't appeal to me, right? And I think examining those is like one of the, as people who digest entertainment, as streamers who, to a certain extent, you know, broadcast entertainment and share it with people, I think that examining that is one of like the great like subjects of interest for self-reflection.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's present in so many of the great artists I admire. The ability to perceive like deep aspects of human behavior or human behavior. It's fascinating to me. I'm like, I want that power, whatever that is. Like whatever that is, I want that.
Megan is here and she brought the timing. Welcome, Megan, to the stream. If you're here and you don't know Megan, please go click on the link there that we had and go follow Megan. Megan has actually been a guest on this podcast before. It was an absolutely wonderful episode, which you can watch on YouTube. If you do an exclamation point YouTube right here, right now, you get a link to a playlist that will would soon be drowned out by emotes. and it lists it has all the previous.
There's a panel down below too, if you want.
Oh yeah, there's also a panel down below. Welcome to everyone from Megan's stream. I see Giona here. It's good to see you again, my friend. And, of course, is back. So the reason I mentioned about the timing is that we're going to be cluing up now and rating someone in just a moment. First of all, I will say, if you're totally new here and you don't know who we are Streamers Become Human, a weekly 2-hour-long podcast airing at Wednesdays at 9 Eastern, in order of some kind, which I'm now about to make up. On the top left there's Trev, and he runs the show around here. If there's something that's done, it's probably because he did it. And in the middle at the top is my favorite person in the world, the beautiful, amazing, talented Mapsio Morrigan. On the top right is one of the best variety casters on the platform, Sugar Melly, also known as Melly. And on the bottom right is our guest for this evening, which is the Waltiverse. He contains Waltitudes. Go to his stream. If you can use the current guest command and go to his stream and find all sorts of interesting discussions on philosophy and on film and on theater and all sorts of things. If you like deep dives into things and self-reflection and existential things, then you are going to love Walt. And on the bottom left is me. I'm Rory. I ramble about nerd shit. I'm wearing a tie and a t-shirt. I think that tells you most of what you need to know about me. And if you want to learn more about me or about any of us, you can go down below to the panels and you'll find links to each of our channels. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We're going to be cluing up. I want to say first, Walt, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I said that
you don't know that you signed up for this, but once you're on for life, so we can call you up whenever. It could be 20 years from now. We expect you to show up.
Yeah. This is there was some fucking fine print in that contract.
Yeah,
okay.
There was
running.
You promoted this podcast, and I said at the beginning how much you were looking forward to it, and I have to say that I was so much looking forward to this podcast with you. And watching your journey on Twitch has been an absolute delight. You've been, we said you were a type 5 earlier just a few moments ago, and you've lived up to the description I just read on that website, which is you've been thirsty for knowledge. And I get so excited when I see you in my stream and you're like asking an in-depth question about like game AI or something, not only because it gives me a chance to ramble about my nerd shit, but also because
that's when he switches to full screen Rory. He's like, all right.
Yeah, full screen Rory gets into it.
Lore time.
But it's really refreshing to see someone who's new to something but also wants to deep dive into it. And you have a wonderful stream, man. And it's an honor to be a part of it, and it's an honor to mod for you.
Well, thank you guys. Rory. I mean, it has been an honor for me to be on this. I have been really excited to be on this podcast, and it's an honor to be here. So thank you so much for.
He's excited to be on this podcast. Everyone needs to be this excited.
He set the bar, yeah. So we're gonna do a raid now. Trev's gonna do a raid now.
Yes. Oh yeah. I was sweating.
So we're going to be rating someone who's very special. He's been on the podcast twice. He actually interviewed me. He interviewed a host. So that's how you know he's a serious motherfucker, okay? And his name is DOS Pinhead, okay? And I don't know what kind of DOS Pinheads you've met before. He's top 10 easy. He's actually on my top 3 DOS Pinheads. Our stream thing, as Morgan did right there, is perfect. As streamers become raiders, drop an emote if you got it. But if you're here from Megan's, drop a Megan emote. Drop whatever the hell you want. Drop a Kappa, I don't care.
Drop a Walt emote.
Drop a Walt if you got.
He's got amazing emote
right now. Hell yeah.
Well, we don't.
Thank you guys so
Rory
much.
has a favorite DOS Pinhead.
Follow or die. Become raiders. Follow or die.
Have
so
a
much
great
for
night, everyone.
stopping by, also.
Yes. So thank you again, Walt. Thank you for people in chat from Walt.
Thank you.
And everyone who rated, followed, all that shit. So right.
Follow or die. Follow or die.
Yeah, follow or die.
Follow Reband.
Until next time, until next Wednesday, we will see you. And goodbye.
Yeah. Bye.